Well, the background is I've been doing this for 20 years, been involved in boxing since 1991, so a little bit longer than 20 years. But in the strength and conditioning part of it, or strength and conditioning as a whole for 20 years, is my 20th year.
Oh, wow.
And then in the boxing part, I've always been involved. I had a coach, his name was Eric the Prince Martin. I don't know if you remember Eric.
Yeah.
But he was my guy, and how I met him was he did small group conditioning classes for just everyday people. They called them back then white collar training, but I was not a white collar guy, I was a blue collar guy.
Yeah.
So I was like 28, 29 years old when I met him back in 1990, and we started kind of training. I joined his little group of conditioning, 5, 6 people. He was brutal. Gabe, I've never literally had the tongue hanging out of my mouth, not being able to put it back in. It's one of those kind of guys, it was really tough.
Your body starts to betray you, it's so tired.
It was awful, and he did, but the thing was, this guy did everything we did. So I'm like, what is this, But he was still fighting at the time, and so he kind of inspired me. It was like my first inspiration to do it. I was a cook, I was a professional cook, so I still did that job, and that was my career. And then but as I slowly started to kind of fall in love with, I was a big boxing fan before, but then actually fall in love with the training aspect of it, the actual participation of it, the sparring, all these aspects, competing. I started getting this bug. More, going along, I, started working with, with Nonito Donaire. He had walked into the gym one day doing an interview using the ring as a backdrop. It was after when he first went to 115.
Yeah.
And from 112, and he started talking to me, and he had no idea about strength and conditioning. And I had been working with a bunch of amateur guys, some pro MMA guys, and different things. And I just started talking to him about, look, this is what you look for. Look for this. If you want to come back and work out, we'll just work out, and I'll just kind of give you an idea what it's like, so you have an idea of what to look for when you find your guy.
Sure.
And he goes, I'm going to the Philippines for promotion stuff, and then I'll be back in about 4 weeks and we'll do it. All right. Never thought I'd see him again. And he came back the next day.
Oh, wow.
And said, I go, what are you doing? I thought you were going to the Philippines. He goes, I'm not going now. I'm going to train, start my camp. And I go, where? He goes, here. With here? I go, with who? And he goes, with you. And that's how it started. And then Jonathan Penalosa came in about 3 weeks later, and that's how it started. And we've been together. And then my philosophy as it's growing, it still changes and grows.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you.
But the basic thing is, we're all looking for the same thing, to kind of help our fighter condition his body.
Sure.
So for the fights. But my thing is my thought is I'm keeping him healthy.
Yeah.
The boxing itself, the sparring, the training, a lot of impact, that breaks them down. That you cannot take a strength and conditioning program to replace anything that they have to do to prepare themselves for the fight. It's an addition to.
Yes.
And very tricky, because every fighter's different. How they prepare is different. You have to add what I like to say is layers. If you work with them one fight, it's not to your advantage as a strength and conditioning guy. You're kind of trying to piece together, maybe like if you take a fighter on for the first time, you don't try to change their whole style. You look at what they do well, and you maybe add or tweak one or two things.
Yeah.
And if you work with that fighter continuously, you're able to add or build off of those type of things. Same with strength and conditioning. You don't want to just change the guy's whole program and put in a whole new thing. That might not work for them.
Yeah.
You got to take it slow. You got to take it layer by layer, fight by fight. You add a little something to it. Sometimes you go a little wild and you realize this doesn't work. You might go back to that 2 or 3 fights later and say, remember when we did this, it didn't work? It's going to work now because you're more prepared. We're more familiar with each other.
Right.
We can add this. We're ready to add this to it. So those type of things I really believe in. I believe strength and conditioning is you're teaching the fighters skills in training. No different than the skills they learn in the ring, the jab, the cross, the hook, cutting the ring off, being able to fight inside, backing up, fight backing up. All these little nuances and little things that you learn, that fighters learn as their career moves on, those are things that you also, in strength and conditioning, it's not about just making someone throw up. I don't want to be something that just makes it hard for the sake of making it hard.
Yeah.
You learn the skills in the training. That's very, very important. And on top of that, everything has to transition in the ring. If I'm doing something with a guy and it's not working for him, I don't see it working in the ring. It doesn't help his footwork. He doesn't get a lot of explosiveness off it. His punches aren't coming off well. Then we need to readjust that because it's not working.
It's not about your system. It's about maximizing him.
It's maximizing.
Things.
I have always been a eat good food and you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Never really did supplements. Never really believed in it. But going into this kind of profession, this field, where guys are they're malnutrition.
Yeah.
They're dehydrated. They're sparring, taking blows to the head. They're running, tearing micro tears in their tissue. They're doing things, stresses to their body, while they have these habits that are very hard to break of malnutrition, not eating enough calories, not eating enough carbohydrates, not getting that energy source from food.
Worrying about making weight as opposed to being conditioned.
The dehydration. Well, I'm cutting my water. What do you mean you're cutting your water? You still got to spar. You know what that? If you look at your body as 80% water, let's just say generally, look at your brain as a sponge. When you start drying that sponge out, what happens? You touch it, you tear it, it tears, it breaks, pumps apart. That's your brain when you're getting hit. You have to be hydrated. You have to be fed. And then supplementation, I think, is what I've learned and pretty much learned from Victor. Because me and Nonito at the same time were students of that coming into this whole thing. We both had not touched that stuff in our careers.
Yeah.
And because we never really believed, I never really had the idea of it. I ate good. I thought supplementation is just what the word means. You're supplementing what you're not getting from your diet. But as a high performance athlete, you are putting stresses on your body that probably your food intake alone is not able to handle. So the supplementation is very critical. The rest, very critical. The hydration part, extremely critical. All these things which over time being preached at and being not just that, but also being able to see it in actual work. I've taken guys that have had problems with this and they no longer have problems making weight. They no longer have problems with that. Hey coach, I just didn't have it tonight. And I agree with some trainers out there, strength trainers, that are like, you know, well, all that pose means nothing. You know, the strong 6'8" pack doesn't mean anything. Hey, a well-placed body shot will hurt any man, whether he has an 8-pack.
Yeah.
You know, it's all timing, just like anything else. But I do believe in the better condition you are, when you do get hurt, and you will get hurt, you will get tired, you will fatigue. You're not making superhuman people. They are human people, flesh and bone. This opponent is a very well-skilled guy, just like your guy. And he's there to do the same thing that your guy's trying to do to him. And when you do have those things happen to you in the competition, in the fight, the better condition you are, the better you'll be able to handle it, the better you'll be able to overcome it and continue through the fight.